Today we're going to be talking about organisms' basic needs. When we talk about basic, that means just the bare minimum to keep this living thing alive. Organism implies that it's a living thing. It's biotic, made of cells. Remember we said that a group of cells is a tissue, a group of tissues makes an organ, a group of organs makes an organ system, a group of organ systems makes an organism. There can be a complete organism that is only one cell. So most of the time we're talking about multicellular, but it also includes your bacteria and different things that are singular celled. But when we talk about an organism's basic needs, in biology, we're talking about just enough, just the bare minimum to keep it alive. Now, if we were in psychology, they would say, there's more needs to make you a happy, healthy human or person, and yes, that's true. You do need love and security and a sense of belonging, and all of that are parts for a human. But we're talking about just the basic needs that would keep a human alive or any organism alive. And so realize that each organism has different needs in order to survive. Now, we're recording this on page 47 of our journal because there were a few different classes that had glued things in different places. So nobody had anything on 47, so that's where we're starting. So flip over. You might have a few blank pages, you might not, to page 47. We said each organism has different needs in order to survive. A plant is going to have different needs than an animal, but all organisms, which are living things, have basic needs. So, for example, what are the basic needs of a human? We cannot live more than about 4 minutes without this basic need being met. So that would, of course, be oxygen. The air that we breathe contains oxygen, so specifically O2, oxygen. We can't live without that. You can hold your breath, but if you let out your breath and you have absolutely no air in your lungs, after 4 minutes of that, you will start the process of dying. Okay, so that's not how you want to survive. Okay, to survive, you have to have oxygen as a human. You also can't go more than about 3 days without this resource, and that's water. The human body needs water to survive. Clean drinking water, actually. And can't be salt water, can't be filled with bacteria that are going to cause you to have diarrhea and dehydrate and die. You got to have clean water. You also, depending on your size, I could probably go a long time without food, but you have to eventually have some source of energy. You have to have food as a basic need to survive. And then finally, you need some sort of shelter so that you can get out of the environment, out of the elements. So if it's raining, if it's hot, if it's cold, you need some shelter. And so some folks will say, but what about clothes? Well, you're born without clothes. You can live without them. Depending on the environment that you're in, it might be easier to have some extra clothes or to protect you from the sun or whatnot. But as far as just basics, living, to keep you alive, these are the things you need to keep you alive. Now, plants are different from humans, and so let's do some examples of a plant's basic needs. Would include some of the same things, but some are different. And so just for the bare basics, I'm not saying this plant's going to just grow beautifully and everything, but just bare bones, just to keep it alive. That plant is also going to need air, but what it needs in the air is not exactly the same as what we need as humans. Plants actually need carbon dioxide to do their photosynthesis, and they need a little bit of the O2 so that they can do cellular respiration, so they can break down that glucose that they make in photosynthesis to be able to use it. They also need water. They also need sunlight. Now, do we need sunlight? Not day to day to keep us alive. In the big scheme of things, yes, we do, because if we didn't have sunlight, we wouldn't have plants, and then we wouldn't have anything to eat, and we wouldn't have any oxygen, and it's a big cycle. But for immediate basic needs, we don't need the sunlight, but plants do. And then we also, a lot of people will say, oh, plants need soil. Some do, some don't. All plants need the nutrients out of the soil. And there are some plants that only live in water and don't have any soil. There's some plants that are like an air fern. They don't need soil, but they all need the nutrients. And so when we talk about these basic needs being met, it gets harder and harder to meet these basic needs, because the basic needs become harder to obtain or harder to fulfill when our environment starts to change. So as those environment changes happen, this is what causes a need for adaptations. We said that adaptations are changes either in behavior or physical structures in an organism that will help it to survive. And so we're going to be talking a lot about these adaptations that help organisms to live in their changing environment. And so we're going to finish our notes here. This is the end on page 47 in your journal, and then you have the video to watch. We will have a quiz on that video tomorrow, so watch it very carefully.